So Fox News and Fox Business Network are they are really, really over-defending the rich the closer we get to this election. So Media Matters put together a compilation for us. You got to give them credit. I don't know how long it took to make this thing. I mean, they could have been taking clips for like 2 months to get this giant of a compilation. Or you never know. It's Fox News, so this could have all happened in like a 2-day span. But here they go. They're going to do everything in their power to defend the uber wealthy. Take a look.
The leading Democrat contenders all say tax the rich. That's all we need to do to get to the promised land.
We're talking about super duper wealthy people who have assets of more than 50 million, right?
Well, 50 million is big, but it's not as big as you think.
Don't be fooled.
The folks who want to be the next president of the United States are targeting the wealthy, period.
That's not going to work. That's going to scare the heck out of people while vilifying everybody on Wall Street and these horrible rich people.
First you vilify them, and then you open the door to justification to going after all of their money.
You really have the idea that Wall Street is mostly greedy people that don't have the best interests of the company or the economy at heart.
All they want to do is tax the rich with their socialistic policies.
It is class warfare at its highest.
Class warfare rhetoric. It's very dangerous.
I do think there are a lot of people out there who believe that this class warfare is exactly what America needs, and I just couldn't disagree more.
There were these hearings in the 30s where they brought rich people in front of Congress and just kind of trashed them.
Definitely an attack on wealth. There's an attack on success.
You have some people who have not applied themselves and who may not have taken risks. That's what the wealthy has done.
Some of it is a little bit like the evil rich. We need to unmask the evil rich who are living in our midst.
It's so much easier to point fingers at those evil rich so-and-sos who won't share the wealth.
The billionaires, the giant corporations, the mega wealthy. It's all their fault. Take their wealth away because no one deserves that much money.
It feels very good to be told that your problems are not the result of your own decisions, but the result of evil big businesses and rich people.
Big business and rich people taking more heat than Donald Trump.
The left has no time for success.
If you tax the rich, you put a bullseye on opportunity for the poor and the middle class.
It's completely immoral.
The rich bashed and blamed throughout. Financial success these days really is frowned on.
Quote from Maggie Thatcher that I heard earlier today, you don't make the poor richer by making the rich poor. And of course, their whole strategy is making the rich poor.
Americans now believe that there should be the highest income tax rate should be up to 70%.
So we'll end up just like Europe with,
Oh, it's awful.
Wall Street a bad thing for the country. Says you want to get rid of Wall Street?
If it's going to be about a war on the rich, you're not going to go anywhere.
And taking money from the rich just to give it to the poor, redistribution, is not a good reason to tax the rich.
But Democrats all think that if you throw money with a government program at something, it's going to help those that need it and it's going to help income inequality.
Right.
When in fact, if you do the math, many times it doesn't.
All of them would tax the rich.
The millionaires, they're already paying over 80% of all the taxes.
Exactly.
That's not enough.
Yeah.
But you never hear that number.
Well, you hear it on this
pushback.
program. You know that.
Okay, there is just so much to break down there. When they say, oh, they're paying over 80% of all the taxes, that's so misleading because they make all the money. So I like how they think that's a gotcha. Like, oh, yeah? Well, the rich are paying over 80% of the taxes. And still, it is disproportionately, as a percentage, it is less than what a working class person is paying. Again, that's not me talking. That's a recent report that was released, which dove into the specifics and found that right now is the first time in U.S. history that a working class person is paying a higher tax rate than the mega rich. I believe it was 23 and 24% or thereabouts. The effective tax rate that they pay. Working class person, 24%. Mega rich, 23%. It goes back to, I don't know if you guys remember this story, but there was a challenge that Warren Buffett issued. He said to all the CEOs, hey, if you could show me that you pay a higher effective tax rate than your secretary does, I'll give you $1 million of my own money. nobody was able to collect. You want to know why? Because all the CEOs were paying a lower effective tax rate than their secretaries were. You know, Mitt Romney, it was a scandal in 2012 when Mitt Romney released his taxes. Why? He was paying 14%. He made millions and millions of dollars in 1 year, and he paid 14%. Why? It was all capital gains. Capital gains is when you make your money in the stock market and you pay a lower tax rate than if you actually labor for your money. If you work for your money, let's say you work for your money and you made let's say $80,000. Let's say you do pretty well. You make $80,000, you do something in construction or whatever. You're going to pay a higher tax rate than Mitt Romney, who made $14 million, $8 million, anywhere in that range, and he's only paying 14% in taxes. Does that make sense to you? No, that makes absolutely no sense. That's what's called a regressive tax rate. So it's so misleading when they do the whole, well, the rich pay 80% of the taxes. That's so misleading. Now let's get into some of the other arguments that they made. They said, oh my God, you're vilifying the rich. Okay, I've never heard anybody on the left angrily rant against some sort of expert surgeon who makes $1 million a year. Never heard it. Never heard it. I've never heard anybody on the left go after, a professional athlete. LeBron James, I don't know, Kobe Bryant, you fill in the blank with whoever your favorite professional athlete is. And Kobe Bryant, I'm dating myself. He's old school now. He's been retired for a little bit since 2016, but still one of the best ever. Anyway, I never heard anybody on the left target people who there's an argument to be made that, no, they really busted their ass and it's almost like a meritocracy that they're making as much as they're making. You know, don't get me wrong, I'd still tax them more than they're taxed, but I've never heard anybody angrily go after them for making that money. The only time people on the left get really mad is when we're talking about people who rig the system to unfairly get the wealth. And that's why Wall Street is a common target, is because you have, Bernie says it, fraud is a business model on Wall Street. That's true. It was. That's the whole thing that happened during the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession. You had, these rating agencies rate these toxic subprime packages as AAA, which means, they're a safe investment. But that was nonsense because they were bribed to rate it AAA. And everybody on Wall Street was playing hot potato with toxic assets that they knew were going to go bust at one point. There's the Goldman Sachs story I always share on this show, which is, on the one hand, they sold these packages saying they're awesome to their clients, and on the other hand, they were betting on those same packages to tank because they thought they were going to tank, and they made money two ways, selling it and then betting on it to tank. Fraud. Fraud is what that is. So, you know who we get mad at? Those kinds of people. The people who are, vulture capitalists, who are predatory. The people who maybe they own a business and they screw over their workers. They don't pay their workers a living wage. That's who the left targets. So this idea of vilifying the rich. Nobody's vilifying the rich. We're saying, hey, pay a reasonable tax rate, and also don't rig the system and screw people. Don't be a rapacious billionaire who's bulldozes everybody in their path and destroys working families. That's all they're saying. So the idea, you're vilifying the rich. Nonsense. Nonsense. And then he says, or I should say one of the hosts says, 50 million is not as big as you think. Counterpoint, yes, it is. And then they also do class warfare rhetoric flipped. It's so weird because if you turn on MSNBC, you will never hear them say that the rich are doing class warfare on working class families. You never hear that. Ever. 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 But you turn on Fox News and they're always class warfare, class warfare, class warfare. But they flip it. They say, the mobs, the hordes of the peasants are trying to do class warfare against the poor, oppressed rich. Oh, the poor rich. Yeah. When will your boot be off their neck? They're not oppressed. They're not oppressed. They're the opposite of oppressed. But this is something that happens, man. Whether it's the uber wealthy or the far right, they have this profound victim complex, and they flip the reality exactly on its head. Nobody whines more about being a victim than the least victimized people in the country. And that's what we're seeing here. And I'll end with some facts for you because I think these are pretty important. According to economist Emmanuel Saez, income inequality has reached Gilded Age levels. Right back in the Gilded Age, guys. Right back in it. Wall Street bonuses in 2017 were $31.4 billion. That's more than 2 times the earnings of every minimum wage worker in the country combined. So in 1 year, Wall Street bonuses were more than double the earnings of every minimum wage earner in the country combined. You want to talk about a lopsided economy. CEO pay in 1980 was 42 to 1. The CEO would make 42 times more than the average worker. Now it's about 361 to 1. And then, of course, we have the 3 billionaires have as much as the bottom 50% of Americans combined fact, which is scary. I think it's Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Warren Buffett. Those 3 have more than 50% of Americans combined. Yeah, it's okay to want to ameliorate how extreme this income and wealth inequality is. In fact, I think it's the only reasonable position.